Hey guys, Guys and Magic back again, and wanted to go over a couple of things in today's video. First thing is I want to give you guys an update on a video I did a few days ago, the Power of 10% strategy. And basically what I'm doing with this is I'm starting with 22,000 SPS when the price was 2 cents. And what I wanted to do is every time the market goes up or down 10%, I'm either going to buy an additional 10% of what I currently have and add it to my bag, or if the market goes up 10%, I will sell 5% of my bag and then kind of set that aside as some profit. So I wanted to go over what's happened since then. So as you guys know, the price of SPS has gone below 2 cents. So when SPS dipped down to 1.8 cents, I went ahead and I bought another 2200 SPS. So that was 10% of what I currently had. That cost me just under 40 bucks, and that brought my total to 24,200 SPS. Since then, in the last couple days, SPS dipped down to my next buy price of 1.62 cents. So between when I bought the 2200, that took me to 24,200, I'd accumulated another 500 SPS just through staking and guild brawls and all that. So I wanted to use the current amount that I had at the time the price dipped to that 1.62 cents. So I went ahead and I bought another 2470 SPS. Cost me right at 40 bucks. So now my total is at 27,170 SPS. If I go to the page, you can see it's actually a little bit higher than that. So right now I'm at 27,219. So my next target is, with this being the current price that I bought more SPS at, I want to track it from here, whether it goes up or down 10%. So if SPS continues to fall and goes down to 1.46 cents, I'm going to buy another 10% of my bag. If SPS rises to 1.78 cents, I'm going to sell 5% of my bag. So that's where I'm at right now. So just wanted to give you guys an update. So since I started this, probably a month ago or so, I think was when I was at 22,000 SPS. I've invested another 80 bucks, and now I'm up to just over 27,000. So that's an update for that video. And like I said, as the price changes, whenever it hits this lower price or higher price, I will go ahead and either buy or sell those appropriate amounts, and I'll let you guys know how that's going. Okay, so the main part of this video is I want to go over land. Particularly the new resources, what they will be, what resources we know about, which ones we're kind of speculating on, and then I also want to get into what my thoughts are on storage and how storage is going to work. Okay, so just some of the basics, what we do know. We know there are going to be 4 different types of basic resources that are going to be found on some of your land plots, and those are going to be either grain, wood, or stone. These are going to be the ones that are found on your natural plots. If you have a magical plot, it's going to be one of 6 different resources from the 6 different splinters, from dragon all the way to earth. And then for the occupied plots, you're going to have monster essences from occupied lands. So there's basically 11 different types that we know of right now that are your basic resources, are not refined. They're simply just on your land plots. Now, at some point past version 1.5, I don't know if it'll be version 1.6, or maybe version 2.0, we're going to start getting into where we actually take these resources and we refine them into more of their finished product to be able to use them on buildings or to create other resources. So some of the refined resources that we can kind of speculate on and how many there's going to be. The first one I wanted to get into is food from grain. Now in 1.5, we're just using the basics of the resources. So for like grain, the monsters are going to eat the grain to work on your land. Now going forward, I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't see monsters just eating the grain. I see the grain having to be refined in one of the refined buildings, and it's going to be turned into bread. Now I think you're going to have a generic bread type that you can use for every splinter, and it'll work basically the same it does now. Is your monsters will consume it at 0.01 grain per hour, and their production is 0.02 per hour. So basically they're going to be consuming half of what they produce. One of the things they did talk about in the white paper, and I want to go over this, I took a clip of it. It said in phase 2, which I'm assuming is Land 2.0, we plan to introduce the ability to refine grain with essences specific to each element in order to create much more efficient sources of food for the workers. So what that tells me is you're going to take the grain, you're going to combine it with one of these 6 magical resources, and you're going to create a bread that is specifically for that splinter and will give that specific splinter monster a boost. Now, how much of a boost we don't know, but it does make sense that you're going to have different grains for the different type of workers on your land. So one of the speculations that I have is maybe the grain is twice as efficient. So instead of monsters will require 0.01 bread per hour, maybe it'll be 0.005, splinter specific bread per hour, so it's twice as efficient. So this is something I think they're going to do. So they're going to have the 7 different types of bread, your basic bread that any monster can use, going to be the most generic type, but then you're going to have the splinter specific bread that'll probably be, I would assume, twice as good. So it will give a boost, so people will want it. The problem is going to be, what is the cost going to be for creating this bread? Because you're going to have to refine the grain, and then you're going to have to add the specific magical resource to make that bread. So is it going to be worth the money and the effort if you don't have these resources for your specific type of bread that you need? You're not going to have to buy this off the market, and then you're going to have to find someone that can actually create the bread for you if you can't create it yourself. What is the cost going to be? So all that's to be determined, but I think they are definitely going to come out with different ways to feed the different splinters that'll be more efficient than just your basic bread. Okay, some of the other resources are probably going to be your refined basic resources. So your wood will be turned into lumber or planks, your ore will be turned into steel bars, and your stone will be turned into bricks. Now these are going to be what you're actually going to use to build your buildings in 2.0 and forward. So you're going to need a certain amount of planks, steel bars, and bricks to actually construct and then eventually be able to upgrade and repair your buildings. And I think eventually what a lot of the new resources are going to be is they're going to be enchanted items. So you're going to be able to enchant each of these basic resources into a magical version of them. So just to assume that the planks, you'll be able to combine them with like a dragon resource from your dragon magical land to produce an enchanted dragon plank. So what I'm thinking that you would do with those is if you wanted to make, let's say, a granary to store grain on your one of your plots, and you're using dragon cards on that plot. If you have enchanted dragon planks, you're basically making like a dragon themed granary. So if you're using dragon monsters in that building, they're going to get a bonus, as opposed to one of the other splinters that you could use on that land. So you can kind of fine tune a little bit more based on the type of monsters that are working your land, making a building that is specifically suited to them. So that would be kind of cool. So that would bring us to another 18 resources. So you would take your planks or your lumber, your steel bars, your bricks, combine them with whatever magical resource you need, and you would get basically an enchanted version of that refined resource. So you've got your 11 basic ones, you've got your 7 for your food, your 3 for your refined basic, and then your 18 enchanted ones. So then for the last 6 that I could come up with is, let's say you took one of these dragon magical resources and combine it with a monster essence from an occupied land, you would get some sort of an enchanted essence. Now, will enchanted essences be needed for certain buildings? Maybe. So altogether that gets to 45 resources. So those are just my thoughts on what they could be. Now, one of the questions is, how do you create these enchanted items? So let's say for like bricks, if you want to turn bricks into enchanted dragon bricks, will you be able to do that in that specific building? Or is that going to be something that you have to unlock with a certain amount of research? So let's say, for example, you need 100 research tokens to be able to unlock all the different recipes to make all these different enchanted resources. So that could be something as well. This is another reason why I'm really leaning heavily into doing magical research on the 2 plots that I have, is I think you're going to kind of be gated as to some of the recipes and some of the buildings you're going to be able to build on your plots, depending on the amount of research that you've done. So that just my thought. This hasn't, of course, been verified by the team yet, but I think at some point it will be. And then another question I have is what kind of buildings will craft these, and what kind of buildings, what will these enchanted resources be used for? Probably for storage, I'm thinking. Maybe just beside your basic storage building, you'll be able to make an enhanced storage building. What would be kind of cool is, let's say, for example, you're going to build, like to store all your stone, you're going to build some sort of vault to store all your stone. Well, maybe you could make an enhanced stone storage building where not only can you store your bricks in, maybe you can also store another resource as well. Like maybe you can store your stone and your ore in one building instead of having to build 2 different separate storage options. And another thing I thought of too is the building that's eventually going to be used to create items and spells, whatever that building is going to be called. That's going to probably require some sort of enhanced materials to create. Now, how many of those resources is to be determined, but I think it's kind of safe to say that you're not going to be able to build the highest level buildings in the game with just your basic refined materials. You're going to have some magical bricks, magical steel, that type of thing. Let's go into some of the basic storage. I think all storage buildings are going to have a cap. So even if you build, let's say for storing your grain, you build a granary, all buildings will start at level 1. You're going to have some sort of cap as to how much grain you can store in that building before you have to upgrade it to store even more. So my example was, let's just say if you have a level 1 granary, you can store 100,000 grain that you produce on your certain plot. After that, you're going to have to either raise the level of that storage building to level 2 to store more, or you're going to have to sell whatever excess grain you have that you're not able to store. Keep in mind too, from what they've hinted at and kind of what I'm thinking is, you're only going to be able to level your buildings based on whatever the level of the keep and castle is in your region. So let's say in your region you have a level 2 castle. That means your keeps can only go to level 2, so that means probably all your buildings can only go to level 2. So if you want to get your buildings on your plots from level 2 to 3, you're going to have to first, everyone's going to have to contribute in that region to the castle to get your castle to level 3. Once your castle is level 3, then everyone's going to have to contribute to whatever track you're in to get your keep to level 3. So it's going to be a slow process, but I think that's going to be how it's going to work. So yeah, I think you're going to have a separate storage building for your grain, for your wood, for your ore, and your stone. I think that's pretty straightforward. One of the questions I had was for all the 6 different magical resources. Are you going to need a separate one for each magical resource, or are you going to have just basically one magical resource building where you can store all 6? So that's kind of to be determined. It would be nice if you could store all 6 of those in one building, but let's see where the team decides to go with that one. And then essences. Are you going to really have to do anything with monster essences once you defeat the monsters on your occupied land and acquire them? I don't think they're going to be refined, but once again, that's to be determined. And are they going to need their own storage building, or will they kind of get grouped in together with the magical resources that you get? So a lot of this is to be determined. I'm kind of leaning towards essences will probably also need their own storage. So we'll see with that. Refined storage. Let's say, for example, you're doing your grain and you store it in granary. Will you also be able to, once you enchant or enhance that grain into the different types of bread, will you be able to store those in a basic building, or you're going to have kind of a refined storage building where not only are you storing the grain, you can also store the bread, you can also store the death bread, life bread, all that type of thing. I think that would be kind of cool to have a higher level storage than just your basic storage, where not only can you store the basic kind of tier 1 materials, but all the magical and enhanced as well. So that's something I think the team will lead for too, as well, is not only are you going to have to spend your ore, lumber, and stone to make your basic storage buildings, you're going to have to refine those into the magical variants and enchanted variants, and you're going to have to use those resources to make another tier of storage buildings. And then the last point that I wanted to bring up, I'm not sure a lot of people have thought about this, but this is a very important point to keep in mind. If you have a limited number of plots, like say you only have 2 or 3 or 5 plots, and you have 5 different terrain types, that may not work for you if you're planning on refining the resources that you create and store them. Because what it looks like from what the team has shown in the past is each terrain type, you're going to have about 4 to 6 different options of buildings that you can be able to construct on that terrain type. So say, for example, if you have a plains and then you have a mountain and a caldera and a swamp and a forest, if you build, if you're harvesting grain on one and you want to make a grain storage building on one of your other plots, if they are the incorrect terrain types, you may not be able to do that. So this is something, an important point that I hope the team talks about soon. Maybe I'm going to bring this up as a question for the town hall for later today, is what are the, at least as far as they've gotten now in Land 1.5 and looking forward to 2.0, what are their thoughts on the different options of buildings that you can build on each terrain type? Because this could be very important. I mean, if you have 5 plots and they're all hills or all plains or all, you know, calderas or whatever, I think you're going to be fine. But if you have 5 different terrain types, you may be in for a rude awakening, unless you're going to try to just simply harvest, you know, different resources on the different plots. That's fine. But if you're trying to harvest and refine and store the same resource, you may be having an issue there. So just wanted to bring that point up, and that's something to keep in mind. Okay, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, just kind of brainstorming on a lot of this. We might get some of these questions tonight answered in the town hall. I asked a question about the resources and about storage, and I think someone else did as well. So I'm curious to see when I get home from work what those answers will be, and then I can update this video as that goes along as soon as we get more information. But yep, hope you guys are getting ready for Land. Just wanted to give you some more ideas to think about, and just some other options for you as far as to, you know, what do I look forward to for Land 1.5 and beyond. So we'll wrap the video up here. As always, if you guys have any comments, please leave those in the comments below. If any have any topics you'd like me to cover, leave those in the comments as well. And until next time, remember, stay the course, keep on forging. Take care.